C.S. Lewis, for example, said, well, it's ridiculous to think that we don't have to pray. It's just as ridiculous to think that we don't have to feed ourselves or put our clothes on. Saying, well, that's all predetermined. We don't have to do that. That'll happen. It's the same way. That's how C.S. Lewis explained it. Probably the best way to explain it, as far as, yes, we do not understand it. God is not like us. It has a sense of time. God is above time, past time. God is not logical as we are logical, at least in the sense of He can be in more places than one time, more than one place at one time. But God has this ability to listen and this ability to really care. And Jesus Himself, and I believe that's the strongest evidence for the prayer that we need. Jesus Himself prayed to the Lord. Not because He did not have a direct connection to God, which He did, being true God and true man, but yet He, as true man, He prayed to God. He not only prayed to God, but He showed us how to pray. And we have studied that, and we've looked at the Lord's Prayer. The compelling thing is that no matter how difficult life can be, and it can and is at some times difficult, God always does care. I'd like to take a quick look at this little clip, which shows a young boy looking back and some of the conversations that he had with his father, regrets of his father. And it starts out, the movie starts out with the quote from Job. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? And in the movie also, the statement is made, you live life in two ways. One is by the law, and one is by grace. Now, if you live life by the law, what they mean is that you live it as, in the spirit of the survivor of the fittest, or survival of the fittest, where you take everything that you possibly can take, and they believe that by grace you allow people. You don't always take advantage of people. You don't always do what you could do as far as winning things, but that you allow people to have the benefit of your love. They might not in the movie, I haven't seen it myself, they might not in the movie know that grace is not only something that you give, but it's also something you get. The grace that we get is from our Jesus Christ. The grace that we get is from God that is a loving God. Let's take a quick look at the clip. The clip, at least my interpretation of it, does leave me, perhaps you, empty at the end. What it is showing to me, and I believe it's accurate, is what it's like to live without the knowledge that God really does care. He has convinced himself, that is, the Father has convinced himself that his life was not worth living. Part of what we find out in the other parts of the movie is that he was a very good musician, but somehow did not reach his goal of being a professional musician. And so we see the scene of the boy who then grows up, and that is what the movie is about, the boy's life and the struggle that he had. What we can say is that life is never without God's care. However, it is true that we cannot say that life is without pain. And pain comes in different forms, in different ways. And pain was to Abraham and Sarah in a way that they thought that the promise that they had been given, that they were blessed, that they were going to be the father, the mother of a great nation, there was no way that could be, and yet God came. And then Abraham used that wonderful time, that relationship, person to God, person to person, as we can use our relationship by God's grace, by our statement, by the faith that we were given, to strengthen ourselves when those times come. In the past they have been, and when those times, as we know, will come in the future. We are never, ever without God's power. And that is the message.